The Middleton Fire District. I've been here before, and I love what you guys have got going on here. I love the pride that you have in your department, and although I'm here today to talk about a few subject items, I'm also here to steal from you. As I told you before, when we get done or as we go through, that's why I want to know who everybody is and what your knowledge base is, and hopefully you speak up over the next however long we've got, so that I can learn as well. And our crew came down with me today to learn right along the side of us. So I'm not just presenting, I'm here to learn as well. I've been with the Middleton Fire Department 23 years. I've been the chief now for 12 of those years. I started in Viroqua, Wisconsin, so small town USA. And grew up around the fire department. Grew up since I was a little kid. I started responding on fire calls, I think, when I was 6 with my father. Father's still in the fire service. He's on our department, as well as he was retired as the chief of Viroqua Fire Department and works with Viola Fire Department. And some of you may have seen him at state exams. He's usually the guy who does hazardous materials and sits on several committees there. So that's where some of the knowledge base comes from. I mentioned that before. I mentioned my brother, because he's also in the fire service, but not part of the knowledge base. So I can say that here. Yeah, he's the assistant chief of the North Shore of Milwaukee Fire Department. So we literally, our family spans the state of Wisconsin from the far west to the middle of the state in Middleton to the far east side. These are my kids, Peyton, Quinn, and Easton. I just show the photo because some of what I talk about today will kind of relate back to teaching them. I liken it to actually how I taught all 4 of these individuals. I prefer to start with a fresh mind. So somebody comes to our department, although we bring on people who have many years of service, the toughest thing to break is tradition. The fire service is, they say, what is it, 150 years of plus of tradition unimpeded by progress. So it is difficult to get people to break out of the way we do things. Firefighters, we don't like change. But that's why I like to start with a fresh mind. I teach them ropes and knots. I teach them about fire science. I hate to even say it, but they're kind of my little test rats to see if I can teach them and they get it and they understand it, shouldn't you? Right? And that's tough. I'm pretty stuck in my ways. I think the last time I was here, I had my soapbox with me. Every once in a while, I'll get up on top of a chair and make a fool out of myself. But it's to make a point. It's that we have to think outside of the box, think outside of the folding tank, as Fire Chief Chuck Himsel coined that phrase. But that's my kids. That's basically at the age I started. That's the age I started responding on fire calls and with my father. So it's pretty cool. But he's curious, a lot of good questions. He gets it better than I did 10 years into the fire service. It took a long time to break me of bad habits. And that's probably the toughest thing I get when I go out, is breaking people of bad habits. It's okay to say, you know what, Chief, I disagree with you. Because that's the time that you don't disagree with me. It's more of disagreeing with the science or whatever I'm talking about. But that's when I get better at being an instructor and teaching the given point, and hopefully we can get the point across and you can finally see the right way, which is my way. So, but no, I do want you to challenge. I might be wrong. We might be wrong. The science behind some of this stuff might be wrong, but let's learn and be open-minded and throw things out there. And if we walk out of this room and you never, think about what I talk about again, or you say no, we're going to continue on our way. Awesome. that's fine. We go back to doing what we do and you continue on what you're doing. But I can almost guarantee you, you're going to learn something, and so are we. Okay? One thing I wish my son would learn is how to get rid of that damn bear. So we protect 56 square miles, about 30,000 in population, and it's just over, I think it's $4.25 billion in equalized property value. We're the largest equalized property value in the state of Wisconsin, I think, outside of Mequon. So a lot of industry, a lot of big homes, multi-million-dollar homes, but we do so as a volunteer department. I am career. We have 5 full-time cadre that take care of things, training and things around the firehouse. But we do everything, and even those 5 are volunteers at heart. I'm a volunteer at heart. I truly believe in how we operate. We operate with 120 men and women, firefighters, rehab techs, and fire corps personnel. With that tax base, we are obviously provided some really nice equipment. That's without a doubt. Some people say, well, how can we do that? We don't have that piece of equipment, or we don't have that type of money. We're talking about science here. We're not talking about necessarily the technology. Or think about what the technology does, and we're all creative, like-minded thinkers, find a way to make it happen. This I would tout as one of the most technologically advanced heavy rescues in the state, if not in the country. There's some magazine articles being written about this piece of equipment but it's not that it costs any more necessarily. It's about the thought process that went into it, and we thought outside the box, didn't stick with tradition, and put new technology within it. Initially, people are like, "What? You don't want to do that?" Now all of a sudden, it's like, "Hey, how is that working?" Right? Be a leader. Don't be a follower. We have 2 stations. We operate out of 2 stations. They were both built in 2008. Very fortunate. This is our satellite station in the town of Middleton, and our headquarters station located in the city of Middleton. But we are a fire district. We cover 4 different municipalities. If you're ever in town, you're ever in Middleton, I highly suggest you come and visit us. Come and take a tour. If you want to do a ride-along, stay overnight, you're always welcome. Just leave some business cards, contact us. We have people coming and staying with us all the time. But again, our fire commission is very supportive of the way we do business. And part of that business is getting people to come in, see what we have, critique what we have, and at the same time we get to learn from what they have and what they do. We didn't come up with all of this. We stole those ideas from other people. I want to say, what department down around here, we got our washing system was based off of how they do things. And there's all sorts of things built in to this facility and our operations. Today, I'm going to challenge you, as I always do. We always talk about different degrees beyond tradition. You know, the challenge is to go beyond tradition. Think outside of the folding tank. Is that the best way of doing things? I'm going to only touch on like 2 or 3 topics tonight, but I'm sure we'll venture into others. But the one thing that just comes to mind, thinking outside of the folding tank, we rarely use folding tanks anymore. We rarely drop a tank, and people say, well, how, why? Hopefully we get to that. Hopefully we get to, again, thinking outside of tradition, thinking outside of that folding tank. Tonight we're going to talk about how fires flow, some of the NIST studies that just came out of the New York Fire Department and other agencies. new technology and how we fight fires. I emphasize we because I'm not saying it's how you should do it. Okay? I want to make that very clear. All of this is, we're just saying, this is how Middleton conducts their business. This is with the science and so on behind it. Take it or leave it. But maybe think again, how could you implement some of those things? When I was here the last time, did you think twice about how you did your operations? Maybe some of your pump pressures? I don't know. Did you make any changes?
Yep.
Do you know any off the top of your head, so I know where you're at?
One of our, what do you call it, our initial attack for high flow, is a 2.5 inch and 3/4.
Awesome. You're one of the few that do that. That is thinking outside the folding tank, right? That's thinking outside the box. You don't want to go up to those really high pressures, nozzle reaction force, they go to a 2.5, reduce it down to 1 3/4. We don't do that. We preach it, but we don't do that. But it's awesome. Awesome way to do it. Anything else that you can think of? The rest was a blur, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Cool.
Blitz attack.
Oh, yeah. Cellar nozzle?
Cellar nozzle.
Okay, cool. And that's a big part of my presentation tonight is not so much cellar nozzles, the science behind cellar nozzles, and how you can use your traditional hand lines and other pieces of equipment to put out fires faster. And that's stuff we've learned since the last time I was here. That's what I'm most jacked up about right now to talk to you about. I could talk all night and then some just on surface area. We're going to quickly go over fire science. What does it take to heat, fuel, oxygen, chemical chain reaction? Take any one of those sides away, you no longer have fire. Everybody remember the book, right? You know, the flaming book. See if we can. I could plug it in. I will in a minute. But, so you bring all four things together: heat, fuel, oxygen, chemical chain reaction. You have fire. You have ignition. Now, as it goes through its stages of growth, stages of fire, you have ignition, growth, flame over, also known as rollover. It's when the gases at the top of the ceiling ignite. Flashover, that's at the point where all combustible surfaces, the floor, the ceiling, the table, you name it, within that room, everything ignites, the gases ignite. And then it continues to free burn and then goes into decay. That's pretty straightforward, perfect world, if you will. But what those NIST studies are talking about, what you have to be really aware of, is that's not necessarily what we run into. And are you sure I can write on this?
Yep.
I do not want to, I'll make sure it's a dry erase here.
Yeah, make sure
Use those ones you brought over there.
Is that? Yeah, it's dry erase.
Dry erase. Yeah.
Okay, what we find is anywhere along this path you get into flame over, flash over, what it does, they found, is it burns so fast it goes into decay early, and then once we get there, or once it gets oxygen again, it does this. And that's dangerous. That's what we have to really pay attention to, is what are we doing about ventilation? Are we feeding the fire? How can we control it? Last time, can't remember the last time, if I had been to Scotland and talked about air track management and so on. Huge. Here the NIST studies come out. Please. See, that's what I'm afraid of. Maybe this isn't the thing to. Do you guys usually spray it down?
Yeah, straight down.
Okay. Scared me. Shaving cream? But that's huge to understand. And as I show you videos along the way, don't just look at it as, moth to the flame, paying attention to the fire. You got to look at it a little bit deeper and see why is that fire surviving? Where is it getting its oxygen from? And in those studies, they found that new technology, new modern construction, it eats up the oxygen so fast, so it takes out the O of our fire tetrahedron here, and it goes into decay. But once it gets it back, it comes back with a vengeance. Okay, and that's the part, that's where firefighters are getting injured because they're not expecting that rapid rebound of the fire. So we're going to talk a little
What
bit
do you
about
mean by
that.
lack of oxygen because of new construction? Because they're tighter buildings?
They're tighter buildings, and the products that burn within it burn so fast and hot, they're basically solid rocket fuel, that it consumes all the oxygen. If a window doesn't break, it eats up all the oxygen, and once a window finally does break or a door is opened up, in comes the oxygen, and all that gas that's been off-gassing during that time ignites, in general. Okay? So we understand, again, heat, fuel, oxygen, chemical chain reaction. It's going to go through these stages. But the big thing that we need to add to this, again, is paying attention to where is it getting its oxygen from. We know where it's getting its fuel from. We know where it's getting its heat from. It's where is it getting its oxygen from. And then also, how do fires transfer to other areas? Conduction, convection, radiation. We're going to kind of add to that fire flows. Remember I said one of the topics we're going to talk about tonight is fire flows. How fires flow throughout the building. How do they transfer from one area to the next? And here it is. I'm going to skip this video. So fire flows. Have you heard the terminology overpressure, underpressure, neutral zone? Overpressure, overpressure. I'm in the underpressure. Overpressure, neutral zone, underpressure. So pay attention to that video. Would we all agree that where that fire is, where those gases are, is at a higher pressure than what's below it? Right? Heat expands the air rises, pushes up, and it creates a higher pressure in that upper level. Okay? So what we need for you to understand is, we used to talk about stratification of heat. Heat rises, right? And within that area, not only does heat stratify, but the gases stratify. So you'll have the different gases, depending on the density of those gases, layered within it as well. But that's higher pressure. You could stick a probe in here, measure it. This is higher pressure. You have that stratification line. We've all seen it. You go in and you see that layer of smoke or the flames. I just pointed it out in there. You've got the higher pressure up here. That's the neutral plane. Neutral zone. Down below is lower pressure. Negative pressure. I don't want to say negative pressure. It's lower pressure. High pressure, low pressure. Anybody watch the news, the weather? Anybody really into weather? Well, I'm going snowmobiling next week, and I'm really into it because I'm hoping it doesn't warm up too much. But the thing that's going to hurt our trip is that there is currently a low pressure zone over there. What's going to go there? What's going to go to the low pressure? The high pressure. Same thing happens with inside of a fire. Things go from high pressure and will always take the path of least resistance to a low pressure. So why does fires transfer from one area of the building to the next? Why does it react the way it does? It's going from high pressure to low pressure. It's that simple. If you have air coming into the house, and hopefully you'll see enough of the videos, you'll see where the air track is coming in the negative pressure, it's getting its oxygen, and it's the lower pressure. The fire, you can I can set up a fire to say it's gonna come down here and go down that hallway. And once we want it to change, we're gonna shut something, and then it's gonna all of a sudden waver, come back, and then we're gonna make it go down that hallway, shut something and have it come this way. You can control it. Because you're not controlling the fire so much, you're controlling the pressures. Where is the negative pressure zone within that structure? Okay, so the slightest differential in pressure, they show the fire is going to transfer. So legacy homes, we talk about legacy homes being the older style, older built homes versus modern day construction. Modern day construction, tighter, you got sprayed in insulation, you got thicker paned windows, right? Where's the master? Right?
Well, not their building, no.
Where's the chief? Okay.
That's not true. They
You're
just
making me
did my
feel
house.
uncomfortable. Okay, so we got the legacy homes, we got modern day construction, fire builds up, and it eats up that oxygen. We open up the door, where's the fire going? Right at us, potentially. You open up a window, it may go out that direction. So reading smoke, we talked about that the last time. Reading the fire, I just gave a few little video clips of reading the fire to understand where is it getting. From that, you can determine where is it getting its oxygen from. Key points to how you attack those fires. Modern day construction, fire's not going to transfer through the walls as much because it's tight. Older legacy style construction, it can get in the walls, balloon frame constructions. Why did fires transfer? You know, I'll think about it. We say balloon construction, you got a fire in the basement and it's all of a sudden showing upstairs. Is it just because it had a pathway? Or is it because you had a high pressure and a low pressure zone and that's where it's going to go? We've learned a lot about that since the last time I was here. Does that make sense to you? It's that simple. But so, do you just go up, newer firefighters, do you just go up to a building and break open the windows? Right? You know, when I ride along with some other fire departments, and you see that all the time. Go up, smash, smash, smash. Oh, hey, who in the heck was in this room? Why? They haven't broken these windows yet. Right? You laugh, but that's the way it still is in a lot of departments, and that's the way it was when I was a kid. You go in, how did you ventilate a building? You smashed open every window to let the heat out. Okay? And we can talk about negative pressure ventilation, positive pressure ventilation, natural ventilation, and so on. But you've got to be able to control it. The more you smash open those windows, you're going to lose it. So talking about fire flows. Remember I talked about when I was in Scotland, I was with a guy who wrote the book called Smoke Burns, and he talked about air track. It's the same thing. I talked about it the last time about air track management, but really it's about that's where the oxygen's coming from, but it's also allowing the fire to flow because of high pressure and low pressure zones within the building. So they now preach and they're now teaching you can make entry and you can shut the door and control the air source, control the vent hole. In Scotland, what they're starting to do is they take, I think it's Kevlar, or they take some mesh screen, and if they see the vent hole, and it's very sticky substance, they see the vent hole and they slap it over and replace the broken window and cap it. But that's on the vent, that's on where the air track. So air is going into this window. We just got done talking about a fire needs oxygen. Where is that coming from? Right here. What happens if we shut this off? Fire goes out. Or it subsides substantially. Next, do you do car burns here? You ever go out and burn cars? We have a situation where we're able to do that a lot. We run a lot of experiments. We did it last Thursday night. We start a fire, rip-roaring fire inside the vehicle, look at it as if it's a structure fire. You read the smoke, see where smoke is going in, you see where air is going in to feed the fire, and we shut it. within what, 4 seconds, the fire's almost completely out. Because it consumes all of the oxygen. Remember what I said before about that fire curve. When it consumes all the oxygen, what do you expect it to do? Drop. Goes into decay. If you add oxygen, what can you expect it to do? Grow. But just because it goes into decay, does that mean that the fuel load has gone as well? No. Matter of fact, if there's enough heat in there, everything's still going through what's called pyrolysis, right? It's still off-gassing, it's smoldering, it's smoking. It's that smoke, it's that gas that we're most concerned about, right? So, it burns up all the oxygen, but it's not burning up the fuel. The fuel, it becomes a fuel-rich fire, right? The smoke keeps filling up that space. Now in comes the oxygen. You have to be prepared for that. Right? So as we go through, really pay attention to how the fires are flowing, and then how can you control it. I will show you one fire that's actually under the new technologies that we're going to talk about. But we attack the fire, and everybody says, that new technology is incredible. It is. Well, how we attack fires, it is definitely incredible technology, but really, it has nothing to do with the technology. I shouldn't say nothing. It has a lot to do with how we extinguished it, but a lot of how we control that given fire is we shut a damn door. Boy, that's technology, right? But think about it. Does your 911 dispatchers inform somebody when they're exiting the home, shut your door? What?
They just tell them to evacuate.
But should they be telling them to shut their door? Maybe. That's something you can do here to work with your dispatchers, right? In Dane County, they have an emergency dispatch protocol that they give exit instructions. And every time, it's consistent, every time they're saying, is everybody out of the house? Yes, I'm the last one leaving. Exit the building, stay out, and shut the door. Why? Let it consume up all the oxygen. It's going to stall the fire until we get there. Or at least until a window breaks and gets some more. But why would we leave a window open? Now thinking ahead, this came to me, but in the middle of the summer, should you be a little more concerned about a structure fire in the middle of the summer than the winter? There's a lot more open windows, right? A lot more sources of air. So let's talk about, for a second, reading the smoke. And guys, I'm going to need my charger for this phone, wherever the heck I put that. It might be still in the vehicle.
Up front.
So when you look at a window, let's just use this again. Here's our window. I'm just going to use it from here to here. All right? And you show up on the scene and you've got flames blowing out this right up through here. That's high pressure, right? And it's pressurized. So it's charged. But you've got smoke going in here, or you can tell that down below here, you've got smoke going the other direction. What does that tell you about the rest of the house, or at least that room? It's sealed. If the door was open to this room that we're on the outside of the building looking in. If the door was open, that's all right, I'll give them a break here in a second and I'll find it. If the door to this room was closed, you can expect that. Oxygen's going in, combusting, helping the combustion process, blowing out the top. If that door opens and you open the front door, what can you expect of this?
Fire go away.
The low pressure zone is out here now. It's going to draw the air in through the house, and this whole area is going to be filled with flames. So when you see that, when you see the smoke going in, or you see where the vent hole is, the first thing we teach our officers is, can you control it? Can you control that fire? Can you control that fire through controlling the vent hole? This is the vent hole. It's right here. You're standing right next to it. That's where it's getting the oxygen from. What happens when we go and open up the front door? We screw it up royally. Do we not? Now we're feeding it. It's going to draw, and you can expect this to change. So as your crews make entry into the building, as they approach the building, you should be looking at that, but then when they go in and they're telling you they're doing certain things, you should be expecting these conditions to change. Should you not? You should. And so we as officers, the officers here, pay attention to it. Because can they see that on the inside? Can they feel the pressures changing? No. It's one of the things we are, this is where my attention deficit disorder kicks in. So I'm going to jump around a little bit. This is where we are adding new technology. One of the things I was going to talk to you about is drones or unmanned devices. We are getting 2 drones, one to fly over the top of the building. It is geosynced, it locks in on the area, shoots down, it sends us wireless video. Any officer can look at a screen in their pocket, their incident commander can look at it and see the conditions instantly. They don't have to get back away from the building and do a 360, and by the time they get around to the front, the conditions have changed in the back. They just look at a screen and go, oh, I see what's going on. We're going for fire attack. They look at a screen and see that the conditions should change, right? Hey, we're on the fire. You know, I think about a radio traffic. It gives me chills listening to it, but it's my brother on a big school fire in North Shore, Milwaukee. They go in, they're attacking the fire, and they say, we've got it, Chief, we're on the fire. So are you sure about that? Yep, we're flowing water on the fire right now. He's like, from what I'm seeing out here, no you're not. What's the problem? How are you doing, sir? Nice to see you. Why? He's watching the conditions. They're saying they're putting water on the fire. They were in the wrong room.
They're in the wrong room.
They're in the wrong room. There was another fire. They did find fire, but they were in the wrong room. They were in the, if they had just thought that was it, and that thing's still building and growing and pressurizing the rest of the area, right? What a great way to use that technology to say, hey, they're beginning the fire attack. We should be seeing changes. So, am I taking it too far on the Crayola level here? Does everybody get that fire is going to flow now from a high pressure area to a low pressure area? The fire is going to get its oxygen through what I call the air tract, and the NIST study, they call it different things, but it'll settle in through our textbooks and stuff over time what they'll actually call it. Some call it the air tract, some call it the fire flow.
When you make entry through the front door, how do you control that door?
There's different ways. I'll talk about how we attack fires. We don't necessarily control that air tract at that point. One way of doing it is maybe not going in the front door. Let's say we're on the inside of the house. Fire is back there in that corner. It's blowing out those 2 side windows back there. Wind is coming this direction. Should we maybe come in that door or work to get a crew to that door to come in? Because if we open up this, we've got air coming in here, right? Lots of pressure. But that's how we fight fires. We read it. If the fire's in the middle of the room, we don't want to pressurize it, because where's it going to go? It's going to take the path of least resistance, go from the high pressure to wherever that negative pressure is, or low pressure zone is. If we can see the fire, we can see it shooting out of a window, why not pressurize it, is our theory. Because it has to flow from high pressure to low pressure. That's not something I came up with. That's part of the science here, right? So why not use positive pressure ventilation, pressurize it like a balloon, and it's going to go out the hole, right? You control it. So if the fire is pushing back this way, that means Low pressure, this way. You pressurize this, which way does the fire have to go? That way. That's why we can walk up. Now, this is the fire room. That's why most of our crews can stay on their feet and come right up to the fire door. You'll see videos of it. Why? Because we're pressurizing this area. Can the fire come back against this pressure? If this gets so pressurized that it can overcome the pressure that's in here, sure it can. But if you do absolutely nothing, I can guarantee you this area is going to be a lower pressure. You follow? So positive pressure isn't for everything, but 99.9% of all of our fires, we positive pressurize it. Can you think of a house fire, a structure fire, that you've had where you didn't know where the fire was at? Or it wasn't on an outer wall? I'm sure you can, but they're a lower number than the ones you can see, right? Think of your home, or most homes. Do most rooms connect to an outer wall in a residential home? So residential structure fire, we pressurize it knowing that we're going to open up the vent hole at the same time. We don't just pressurize it and not open up a hole. The majority of the time, it's already broken through it, but modern day construction, that window might hold. So we get the positive pressure ready, start it up, break out that window, and the fire has to flow out that window. And so it takes time we do burns all the time to believe in and understand the science that's behind this, but it's so obvious to us now. And now, New York, NIST, everybody is saying, hey, pay attention to the air track or airflow. How do you control it? And think about it. How did they used to ventilate? How does Chicago? How do most fire departments ventilate? Go on the roof. We haven't gone on the roof for 15 years in our department because we pushed the smoke and pushed the heat out the door. But what they've disproven about that way of ventilating the room is it's not a big enough hole to actually overcome the pressure. So the fire's in this room. You open up a 4 by 4 foot hole, 8 by 8 foot hole. If that fire is rip roaring, it's creating so much pressure, it doesn't care that that hole's there. It's going out that way and that way and that way anyways. You follow?
So you're feeding it.
So you're feeding it, and also you're allowing it its vent tract, right? It's allowing to draw it out and into an unburned area of the home. So that's probably the toughest part for a lot of people to understand, is they're so set in, we got to get somebody on the roof and break it open and vent it out, right? And then they wonder why the roof is burning off the building. And why firefighters are falling in. I can't do that to our firefighters. We push it out. There are times, yes, where you need to put somebody on the roof. There are times when you have to, but they're few and far between. Okay? So, is that somebody over there? Where does that noise come from?
Oh, that's the radio speaker.
Oh, got it. Freaking me out. I'm hearing voices.
Wow. You don't hear anything.
So, how we fight fires today, and as I said before, this is how we do it. This isn't how we necessarily profess that others do it. There are things within here. We're going to talk about ultra-high pressure. Yes, we are big on ultra-high fire attacks, but there's things that you can, you'll get out of that. It's more about the science of what's happening. Why does it work so well? Okay, that you can do now with your conventional pump system. Thermodynamics. Heat absorption, also known as heat flow, heat transfer, or heat exchange, is an endothermic process described by the second law of thermodynamics. Riveting, huh? All right, so what is that second law? This is key. This should be taught in all firefighting courses. We teach it, right? We talk about it in all of our classes all the time. This is the number one topic. We got to get our firefighters to understand this. The law states that thermal energy transitions from a hotter mass to a cooler mass to reach equilibrium. The longer an object is exposed to a heat source, the more heat will be absorbed. Okay? So we're talking about water droplet size. We're talking about surface area of water. So when you go in and attack a fire, that water needs to collect that heat energy, right? You got to get rid of the heat. You got heat, fuel, oxygen, chemical chain reaction. Now we're talking about getting rid of the heat. The water is how we do it. So sometimes we get lucky and you apply it in the right location, the right time, and it collects just enough to reach what we call critical flow, right? The point in time where we're collecting more heat than the fire's giving off, so the fire has to go up. That's simple, right? The problem is the point here where it says the longer an object is exposed to heat, the heat source, the more that heat will be absorbed. Do we have all that much time? So imagine this being a water droplet. It comes out of the nozzle, up through the smoke, cooling the smoke, but it's collecting heat energy. It hits here, hits the ceiling, and let's just say it breaks into two smaller water droplets. Let's hope it does. And it rains down through, collecting heat energy, and falls to the floor in the form of what? Hot water. It goes up at 70 degrees, comes down at 120, let's say. It collected some heat energy, right? The more it collects, and the faster you do it, it eventually reaches critical flow and puts the fire out. The problem is, the outer surface of that water droplet is the only surface that can collect heat energy. And the inner portion of that water droplet, now we're looking at it under a microscope here, but this water droplet's massive. The inner core of that water, what does it do? What does it do for us? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Because it falls to the floor in the form of hot water. It doesn't collect enough heat energy. It doesn't collect its potential. If this water droplet collected its full potential, it wouldn't hit the floor. It would convert to steam and expand 212 or 1,700 times its volume at 212 degrees, right? But it falls to the floor in the form of hot water. What are some people saying right now? I'm professing that we convert more water to steam. Is that a good thing or a bad thing for us? It's good. It's okay. This is where this goes back to tradition. We always said you never put water in the vent hole, right? And what are the new studies saying? That was false. All this time it's been disproven. Again, by all the studies that's been done, yes, you should put water through there and collect the heat energy. Everybody used to think you're going to push the fire. It's been disproven. Also disproven is if you open it up, you're going to get steam burned, right? Steam can be our friend. It can also be our foe as well, right? If you're in that environment and you get steam, anybody who's had a steam burn, it sucks. I get it. But are we professing you go in and attack a fire to convert water over to steam and then shut the line down and sit there and take it? It doesn't matter what you put in there, you are going to get hot, right? So think about it as we go along here. Think about it, how wrong that is. Because steam, although it is hot, cools. Steam cools fires. This environment, moments before, and you'll see in the videos again, you'll see where it is easily 1,700 degrees. And if you don't convert some water over to steam, whether using a conventional line, ultra high pressure, I don't care what you use, the fire's not going out. Because you're not going to take away the heat. Right? So you'll hear us talk about whether it is a conventional hand line or not. If you go in and spray and put the fire out, should you just immediately shut down? Any instructors in here? Anybody ever do that to somebody just to say, you want to feel a little heat? Here's a little heat. Throw up a couple cups of water and shut the line down. Guess what's going to happen? You're going to get steamed. You're going to get steamed regardless. Water's going to convert over. But if you continue to flow, now what are you doing? Cooling it. Duh, right? That's what they're putting out there and pointing out. Now, do you crawl into the middle of the room that's on fire in the first place with no hood on? Where does a lot of the theories of if you convert water to steam, you're going to get burned? Where does that come from? People who did just that. Crawl into the room, throw some water up in the room, shut it down, and then they go, oh, why are my ears burning? It doesn't matter what you put up there, it's going to do that. Now, we're talking about two different things. Steam conversion and just conversion of the thermal layers of the room. If you come in on a fog pattern into the ceiling, what are you going to do to the room? Whatever, if it's 1700 degrees at the ceiling and initially 200 degrees at the floor, you want that stratification. But if you go in there with the fog pattern, you're stirring it up. Now it's going to be 500 degrees at the floor and 800 degrees at the ceiling. Right? I'm not professing that, but it's two different things. Some people, the theory of getting burnt, come from the same thing, because they used to teach to do what? Go in a fog pattern, go in the room, and spray the ceiling layer. Whip it around. You're just pushing a massive amount of oxygen and air up, and this air has to go someplace else. And it drops down. Okay? But look at the studies. We were actually part of some of those studies with the Air Force. Why is the Air Force going to utilize this technology? Why does an entire country use this technology? And technology, I'm just talking about smaller water droplets. Why do you spray water at the ceiling? Do you do indirect attacks? You swipe the ceiling, paint the box, right? Stop the retroflective radiant heat energy? It works awesome. But how many gallons of water do you use to do it? A lot. You need somebody to be able to apply it correctly. It's the way we still do it as well. I'm not saying that we don't do that anymore. We still do it that way, but we're thinking more about the surface area of those water droplets. Here's my science experiment, and I'm looking for other experiments. Think about it and help me help others with coming up with an experiment you could do to our students in the class this Thursday night, as a matter of fact. This is my first one, and it's a great one to try out at the bars, I think. You take a glass, and you can, you'd want a digital thermometer to take the temperature of the water in the glass. You have 3 of them, right? If you're going to do a science experiment, the first one is your control. We're not going to touch that one. Second one, same temperature of water at the start. That's going to be an ice cube. And the third one is going to be our surface area experiment. Okay, put the thermometer in all 3. They all read 70 degrees. Okay? You put an ice cube in the second glass. At the same time, you take the same size ice cube, just crushed up, and drop the crushed ice in the third glass. Which one's going to cool fastest? Why aren't we attacking? It's about surface area, right? It's about this second law, right? More surface area, more time. And so all we're doing with water is crushing it. We're taking water, a conventional water droplet. The water droplets that we attack most of our fires now are 1/64th the size of the same water droplet. Same volume of water, but we would have 64 water droplets within this one water droplet. Tremendous amount of surface area, correct? So we just did car fires the other night. We did it with this technology, all with small water droplets. What do you respond to a car fire here? In it? Go ahead. I'm waiting for the next one.
Oh, engine and tanker.
Engine and a tanker. Okay? That is the way we used to do it as well, and that's the way 99.9% of everybody does it. It's cool. But why do you need the tanker?
Well, possibly more water, but we only use generally like 500 gallons of water anyway.
500?
We've never really used the tanker in a
Fully
car.
involved car fire, hopefully I have one on my phone, will show you we use somewhere between 5 and 8 gallons of water to put out a completely fully involved car fire because of surface area. And we're going to work those numbers. Not saying what you're doing is wrong, because that's the way we do it. But all I'm pushing for is think about surface area. Do you use a smooth bore? Do you use a fog nozzle? It's the only place we have a fog nozzle is on our front trash line for car fires to get more surface area. But we never use the engine on a car fire anymore. We use a pickup truck. We'll talk about it in a second. Are we killing this? We get it? Surface area, you need more of it. Think of a book. Is there any one of these you really care about this? You really care about this?
No.
Huh? No? I can do what I want?
We'll get one next
All right. How much surface area here? Think about this as a water droplet. How much surface area do we have? Right?
Yeah.
Right? Proving my point? I can cover this whole room with the same amount, but you can't with this. I've got this much surface area, right? This little bit. I can cover this whole room if I rip this thing apart. Look at it as a water droplet. The more you shred this water droplet, the more surface area, the more heat you can collect, the faster you can collect it. So, sorry about that, Chief.
Just got that.
Yeah. One lone tear. It's like the J.C. Penney catalog when I was a kid. All right, so we talked about, I can run down CQ squared L, right? Any driver, operators, anybody who's taken a class, this is how you factor in friction loss, also factor in flow. So we know, and we can, you could measure it. You could take your attack line, set it at your pressures, pour it into a drum. You should know how many gallons per second, right? Or how many gallons you're flowing. What is the amount of water you're applying to the fire? You should know that. We flow at, I'm just going to say 200. It's actually 210, but for simple math, for my simple mind, I need 200 gallons. 200 GPM. Studies show that 90% of a conventional attack line water droplet is wasted. Can we all agree to that? 90%. Have you ever been on a fire where you've got a little river running down the road? That's wasted water, right? Matter of fact, now we're looking at ways of recollecting that and re-putting it back into the truck and reapplying it, if that were to ever happen. Sump pumps. Why are you sending a truck all the way back into the city when you've got all the water you need right there? Right? So it's a little far out there, but it's something you should think about. Yep.
That last barn fire.
Yeah, when you-
last weekend, and it's a big river, or a big lake.
Yeah, as your tender drives off and you see all this water going down, you're like, right? You know, if we can apply that right, why not? Okay, so 200 gallons per minute, 90%. That's in a minute. Remember, I'm big more on reaching critical flow in 5 seconds. So we can break it down. We can all do the math, divide it by 60, multiply it by 5, gives you how much you're flowing per second, right? So in general, we flow at about 3.5 gallons per second on a conventional hand line, right? That's high. And if you're doing the 2.5-inch trick and so on, you're up there. Good for you, that's awesome. You're getting more surface area, right? But 90%, multiply that by 0.9, which is about what I have in this marker, right? How many useful gallons are we getting and how many gallons are wasted? 180 gallons per minute are wasted, which leaves us with 20 utilized, right? When we go to UHP, when we attack fires with ultra-high pressure, and I'm not, again, professing that this is what you should have to do, but here's the thought process. We attack at 30 gallons per minute. First thing people do is say, you're crazy. You need 200 gallons per minute. No, you need the surface area. We have to flow at 200 to use 20. Would anybody make that type of an investment with their money?
How do you know you're only using
There, studies. It goes back to the, it goes back to the second law. Is there times where you could use more and could use less? Yes, but when you're applying it to a internal structure fire, water goes up, comes down, and there sits your 180. That's how you know. When you see water flowing out the front of your house and the fire's not going out, that's how you know, right? Because it's all about removing the heat and the fire goes out. If you're not collecting enough heat, the only way you can collect it is with the water, right? You know you're not utilizing it enough. And it goes back to the second law of thermodynamics. It takes time for that water droplet to collect heat. The smaller it is, it takes less amount of time, and you utilize it. So now 30 gallons per minute, but the data switches. Now you utilize 90% of your water droplet. You waste 10%. Simple math, 23 wasted, right? 3 gallons per minute wasted, 27 utilized. Follow? Our rapid response vehicle, I'm just going to run the numbers, was a 20 gallon per minute system. 6 wasted, right? 90, I'm sorry, 3 wasted, 2 wasted per minute, 18 utilized. We knocked on a ton of fires with the 20 gallon per minute system, but it just wasn't giving us and there's so many other things that why this works better than that. But here's the numbers. You put them side by side, there's no way a conventional handline can be in position compared to how we attack. Now, we'll touch on that in a minute. But let's say they were both standing side by side and you begin to attack. This one will outperform this. Why did we go to a 30? Because all of a sudden this outperforms that. You follow? So some of the fires that you're going to see I'll tell you whether it's a 20 or a 30, it really doesn't matter. But the point in all of it is surface area. Think about your surface area. When you're sweeping the ceiling, that's what you're doing, whether you know it or not. When you're boosting your pressure, whether you know it or not, that's what you're doing, is you're increasing your surface area. You increase the velocity you throw it at, the more peel off you get, the more surface area you get. It's that simple.
But also, the faster it comes down, the less being used. What you're talking,
Yes.
if you put it up,
Except-
we do your gallons a second. We do that, we got our 1-inch tip, we do all that. But it sounds like what you're talking is you put it up slower, it's gonna get more.
No, it's not that simple. Let me think about your
You see what I'm
your
saying?
point.
You're putting
I
so
see what
much
you're
up there,
saying, but it's
you're saying
a
you're not
matter
collecting
of it's that much time,
Oh.
and versus surface area far outweighs the time. Okay, and because think about how slow it would have to go to get this to work in our favor. We're nowhere in the ballpark for how we can apply it, okay? Good question, though, that's awesome. So, I'm just, again, advocating, how can you get smaller water droplets? I'm not yet there to say, I need to think about how do we go back over to a fog nozzle. You know, I'm just giving, you know,
That's the thing, you put more holes in there,
you're gonna get more water droplets, absolutely.
Why do you have to have a fog? Why can't you, more modified than not a fog?
More modified.
Well, I mean, not quite as much then. There'd be bigger droplets,
Yep,
but not
Here's-
small, less steep.
the experiments we did, we went from fog nozzle
Yep.
to a smooth bore.
Yep.
Smooth bore is bigger water droplets, but we break them up by hitting the ceiling, right? And velocity. The harder we throw it, the more it breaks up. But we said, I think we can collect more heat energy for the amount of water that's falling on the floor. And we have on each of our engines now, one of the pre-connected lines is a vindicator nozzle, which has basically knives in front of the water and breaks up. Instead of it going up this big, it's going up this big and then breaking down into smaller water droplets, okay? It still comes down to keep the flow up there. It's gonna put it out. Think though, why is it putting it up? That's what I'm trying to get at. I'm not professing going to what we're doing at all. I think I'm gonna say it 10 more times tonight to make sure that you get that that's not what I'm teaching here. I'm trying to get at, understand that when you're flowing water, it's about the surface area. If you flow it in a straight line at the fire, the first cup of water that leaves that nozzle does its job, right? What's the rest of it? Anything, you just continue to flow in one spot. First cup puts out the fire in that area, the rest is wasted. Right? So the more you apply, the faster you apply it, the more water droplets, the more surface area you get. If you go too slow, and my best friend joined our fire department, and he's in Mr. Porter's class on Thursday nights, and I had him come in today, and we talked about just this. I said, look at your application. We talked about that the last time I was here, right? It's about how you apply it and paint the room. What are you doing when you're painting the room? You're creating surface area. So if you just are sitting there spraying in one spot and moving like this, you're wasting water. Okay? The faster you can move it, the more surface area you're going to get. So that's why I say, maybe it's, if we get into our firefighters' heads, that it's about surface area, and the faster you move it, the more surface area you create, the faster the fire, you're going to reach your goal, right? The slower you go, less surface area, less heat you can collect, you may never reach your goal, right? So I think what you did is awesome. It's still about getting the quantity. If you go higher quantity, it's still more surface area, right? You bounce it off the ceiling, more surface area. Apply it, not in the same area, but paint the entire room, tremendous amount of surface area. You're way ahead of the curve, right? But think about what they're going even further in breaking down that water droplet. Because you can, the graphs of, you load this room with thermocouples, you'll see the spike in temperature, just like you do with a conventional hand line, and then it spikes the opposite direction, the more surface area you have. So it's not just, the water droplets aren't just about collecting the heat energy from the fire, it's about collecting the heat energy in the room. The floor, the walls, the ceiling, everything, retroflective radiant heat energy, right? It's bouncing all over the place. You continue to flow water in there, that room cools like that. Are you more concerned about the heat of steam or the heat of fire? You can knock out a fire in this room in seconds. What do you think you can do about steam? That's at 212 degrees, right? Half of that. Okay?
Is that all the hotter steam gets?
No. But at 212 degrees is where it's water's droplet's gonna convert to steam initially. That's the point of, it's gonna boil. Okay, great questions. So we talk about surface area. When, here, this is a fog nozzle. I just use this as a demonstration or a graphic to talk about, think about all those tiny little water droplets that are in there. All of that area can do something. It's got surface, it can collect the heat energy. No different than ripping apart the chief's book there, right? So that's what we're talking about. But when you direct that into a straight stream, all it is those tiny water droplets in a tight area. The problem is that people apply it in the same spot for too long. So it goes back to what we talked about the last time I was here. You got to move it. You got to move it to collect it. You got to create surface area in a larger area. If you create surface area in the same area, you didn't just put it out. You really put it out, but you allow this to continue to burn. Right? So move the line around, put the water where the heat is. We talked about this before. You guys are doing the same thing. This is a cellar nozzle, right? It's a broken water pattern. Why does it work so well? Surface area. You're taking it, breaking a hole in the ceiling or whatever going down below and creating surface area. But can anybody in this room apply that same amount of water through a conventional nozzle like that cellar nozzle? Think about it. You'd have to be spinning around and throwing it around like this, right? At that flow rate? Well, yeah. But you're flowing at 200 gallons per minute. This is where this 90% goes down. You're utilizing more surface area there, right? But I'm just, these numbers are for conventional fire attack, what most people do. So think about how can you use cellar nozzles, piercing nozzles, but just apply it right. Did I show this to you before when I was here? I don't think so. Did I? So all this is just this whole space in there is fully involved. It's 20 by, I think it's 30. Flashed over, you can see right to the floor. Everything is completely on fire, and we ended up using 32 gallons of water to knock it out. But, yes, I'm talking about surface area, the application. They never go inside of it, by the way. They stay on the outside and just apply it from a doorway, create surface area, knock the fire out. They probably could have put this fire out in half the gallonage, but we were just learning back then. Why? Because watch how, I'll play it a little bit. They apply it too high. Yes, that's great for applying some water and creating some steam and what that does for you, but you got to get to the base of the fire. Conventional hand line, water goes up and it comes down. Smaller water droplets go up, they do not come down. Okay? Because it's being 100% utilized. But tell me what these guys do to stop this. Watch this door over here, this vent area. It's blowing out the bottom, blowing out the top. Is that where it's getting its oxygen from? No. Probably there, right? Watch what this fire does. See that? All of a sudden it's getting its oxygen right there. Remember I told you before, yes, this technology and how they're attacking the fire helps. They're fighting the fire with a 3/4 inch attack line, flowing 20 gallons per minute, ultra high pressure, tiny water droplets. But the majority of why they stopped it so fast, they shut the air traffic. They shut the oxygen off, right? But you'll see. Let this play for another minute. They back out, look at it, the fire's completely under control.
Yeah, they shut the oxygen off, then they went to fought from the side where the oxygen was going in.
Right. So the wind's coming here. Why would you leave a door open there? Why would you make entry there? You got to be really careful. You saw the flames shooting out the side, but I think it's a great example. The flames were just shooting out that window a second ago. And then when they shut it, it all of a sudden goes back the other direction. You got to pay attention to what you're opening, what you're closing, and reading the fire when you get there. What is it doing? Right? We see air going in, just like here. Air going in, fire coming out. Spray water in there. What is that air going to do? It's going to carry those water droplets to the fire. Because where is that air going? To the base of the fire. It does in Europe, UK. They see. Look, is that fire under control? What is the white? White's good, right? That's just water vapor at that point. I'm just going to use this as a graphic, just showing again surface area. And you look at this from the standpoint of whether this is a conventional handline, ultra high pressure, it doesn't matter. But those water droplets that are coming out of there are surface area. You have to look at it from the surface area standpoint. Only the outer edges can collect heat. The inner core cannot. You see what they're trying to depict there?
Wouldn't it make it absorb heat? I mean, wouldn't it?
Oh, it'll collect it. That's why it falls on the floor in the form of hot water. It just doesn't collect as much of it. It can't because it's basically protected. This water droplet, the inner core, this area can't be used. 90% of this water droplet
But it's
cannot be
cool on
used.
the outside though, isn't it?
What's that?
Isn't it cool on the outside? Because it's gonna be colder inside, isn't it absorbing? My brain tells me if it's cooler on the inside, warmer on the outside, it's gonna cool it outside.
It's taking on additional heat energy because heat will transfer from a hotter area to a cooler area. So it's going to the core of that water droplet.
But it's just going so fast.
It's going so fast. And it's just the outer area is the only area. And again, it goes back to my my science experiment at the bar, right? Take a crushed piece of ice versus just an ice cube. 1/64th the water droplet, so crush it down 1/64th the size, add water is going to cool like that, and versus it's going to take time, right? It may eventually, that water, it's going to try to reach equilibrium. That water is going to eventually get down to the same temperature, but that's over time. It takes too long. You want to do it right now, you want to reach critical flow right now, you crush the water. Okay, and that's what you're doing. You're crushing the water by higher flow, and swiping it and applying it. Okay?
Just absorbing the heat in liquid, heating up the liquid, doesn't
Yep.
absorb as much as when it's converted to steam. That's, you gotta
Yep.
get it up to that higher level.
Yep. Fire flow, we talked about high pressure, neutral zone, low pressure. Fire's naturally going to come this direction. That air tract was going down the other way. This video is to also show a couple other things, but speed of attack. How fast can you collect the heat? That's why we go to, why we're now attacking most of our fires with this. Basically what appears like garden hose, but it's hydraulic hose. It doesn't collapse. Because they don't have to drag the hand line in, get 3 people on it to attack the fire. Is it in there? Absolutely. We have that available to us in case we need it. But we begin our fire attacks with it faster. It's just our speed of attack. We believe so much in collecting applying the water faster than what it takes to stretch a hand line out, charge it up, get the people in line, and then drag that SOB through the house and get to the seat of the fire. We come off and it's already charged and we go right up to the fire.
You use foam at all?
Yes, always.
With that line
Yep.
in your hand?
We always inject Class A foam. And that goes to the surface tension. Those water droplets attract to themselves. Water has adhesive and cohesive values. They stick to itself. You put a surfactant in it, foam, it'll take that water droplet and it actually wants to break apart. So if you're adding foam to your line, you're making that much more surface area. So can you do that with a conventional hand line? Can you get water to where you need to, is the point. That line also if the fire is on the other side of this wall and we don't have a window to get to it, you can just open it up and put it up against the wall and it'll cut right through it. So it's, again, surface area, and my point here, speed of attack. Do what you can. Why do you put your hose back? Why do you back your truck's hose back in a certain way? Maybe you do speed lays or not, I don't know. But why do you have your pants already in your boots in your pants? It's all about speed of attack. How soon can you get to the fire to collect more heat than it's giving off when the fire is smaller, right? So the faster you get to the scene, apply water, the fire's naturally going to be smaller, right? And what time are we going to here? I'm almost done, but we're now going to get into just some new technologies. We talk not so much on car fires. Once a car is fully involved, it's trash, right? But on a structure fire, insurance companies love us because most of our scenes are dry because we're using 90% of our water. We apply it better. Even when we attack with a conventional hand line, the scenes are pretty much dry because we're not overflowing. We reach critical flow, put the fire out, drop down the pressures, dribble water on it, and leave the scene intact. So the fire investigators love it, but we don't have rivers of water flowing down the road anymore. But that takes open-minded people and a lot of training. A lot of training to understand. Here's a little video of a recent. See, these things don't rewind here. We'd say that room's rolling. Gas is up there. This is Josh, by the way, on the nozzle, flowing 30 GPM ultra high pressure line. But he's just learning there. If we turn up the volume right about now, I'm screaming what at you, Josh?
Hit the base.
Hit the base. That water is not coming down. Watch what happens when he hits the base. Boom, right there. Fire's out. Because you can knock that fire that's going across the ceiling down, knock those gases down all day long. And he did the right thing. He stopped the fire from advancing up the stairwell. That fire is going here and up a stairwell. Throwing some water into that, whether it's ultra high pressure or not, it doesn't. There's something for a conventional hand line, something to learn here. Put some water into that, because then the fire can't advance that direction. We've stopped more fully involved car fires that are inside garages. So fully involved garage fires from advancing through the roof line like they normally do by throwing up steam into that attic space. If there's steam up there, that means less oxygen up there, moisture level up there, collecting the heat, and the fire can't advance. So thinking outside the folding tank again there. It's but a great attack. Now, if you count the flow there, I'm gonna hit play again. When he opens up, you're gonna be in charge of counting up. It doesn't need to be all that dead on accurate. But when he starts to flow, just say 1, 2, okay?
Keep your shoes on, Dad.
Boom. Counting.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21.
There, he hits the base. That's when the fire goes out. He'll continue to flow, that's fine.
26, 27, 28, 29, 30.
Okay. 30-second flow, total. You knock the fire down, but we continue to flow to cool the box. If you look on the thermal camera, you'll see some more fires. Look at it as, hey, the fire appears to be out. Why are they continuing to flow? They're cooling the box. They're stopping things from off-gassing. our visibility returns faster. So sometimes, just because the fire goes out, doesn't necessarily mean that it's not hazardous for our firefighters, right? Sometimes you have to continue to flow to get the temperature down to make it.
It's hard with an old 150-year-old house and all that glass and plaster, it gets so much heat in it.
Yeah, exactly. So 30 gallons per minute. You flowed for 30 seconds. How many gallons of water did it take to bring that room fire under control? 15. Simple math. 15 gallons of water. You were walking there. If you see the video afterwards, it's dry. You were utilizing all that water, not causing further fire damage. So was the a lot of times after a fire, you have to look at it as, okay, the fire caused this much damage. How much damage did the fire department cause with the use of the water, right? This is just showing, going at the base of the fire in this situation. This is actually, I forget where he's from, Pittsburgh or someplace. But look at him, he's throwing it around, but he's throwing it at the level I get a hold of it and say, hey, right here, base, right? Hit the base. I think I tell him to, keep it there for a second. Look at the air track. He's in a garage door. Did you see the air track? All that air going in there. That fire has everything it needs. Let that air carry the moisture right into the base. But in that situation, I believe it was a 7-second flow, so it's about 4 or 5 gallons of water total to bring that area.
Fire extinguisher hit the base.
Yep. And the key thing there is a lot of times we still launch water at the ceiling. What Josh did, comes in, launches at the ceiling to stop that from advancing. Because it's going from high pressure to low pressure. All that heat and gases are going someplace. I am stunned I haven't taken on.
So are we.
Look at this! They got bets going in the back of the room. But that's going from high pressure to low pressure. That fire was going, that was what, 2 stories up, a good 18 feet big, grandiose entryway in that house. All fully involved in it, it's shooting up the stairwell. It's going to the lowest pressure. He throws water in there, into that, stopping the fire, the visual fire, but it's also cooling the gases that are going upstairs. Maybe a victim up there, right? Or what is it doing? What is it starting on fire in that level of the home? It goes back to, just because there's fire over here doesn't mean you don't want to periodically launch just a little bit of water into an attic space, like in a garage fire situation, so that the fire can't go into that area. You know it's not putting this fire out, but at least it's stalling the fire from going the other direction. Okay? In this situation, you'll see this room goes to flashover. The floor, this is a good sized room. It's not this wide, but it's this long in this house. The carpet, the walls, the furniture, everything that's in there eventually goes to flashover. And watch what happens. Air track, right? Going in the bottom, coming out the top. High pressure area, low pressure area. Air's going in right here. They're doing an exterior transitional attack, 4.5 seconds.
Do the air coming
Can you advance a 3/4 inch hand line that quick? Speed of attack, right? See what the flow rate is here? 11-second ultra-high pressure interior directional attack. So he's painting the room, hitting the base of the fire, and then he adds to it a 5-second cool down of the room. Visibility returns in a fraction of the time. 20.5 second flow. What did it say there?
10 gallons.
10 gallons of water. Fully involved room, 10 gallons of water. Why though? Transitional attack, controlling the air track, and creating surface area, right? When they put it all together, it takes a fraction of the amount of water that you would think it would.
Now, these fires you're having, these are preset in the middle, in the room?
Not in the middle of the room, in the corner of
In
the
the
room.
corner.
Because it's the hottest.
How does it work when it's not in the corner of the room like that, when the studs are burning, the floor joists are burning? Does it still?
It's
would act
still,
differently,
it's,
though, wouldn't it?
it will, definitely, every fire will act differently. How do I best answer that? No different than a conventional line, it still comes down to surface area. Whether you're using automatic, smooth bore, ultra high pressure, it's about putting the wet stuff where the red stuff is, collecting the heat energy, right? In this situation, the hope is that the studs are not burning, right? It's about getting there faster than in time before the fire advances to the point where it gets to the studs. So you're only attacking the gases of the products of that room, right? You're not fighting the structure, you're fighting the contents of the structure,
Gotcha.
right?
Yes, that makes sense.
Yep. So when they go and do, so they talk about transitional attacks, or here they did a transitional attack. They, in that situation, you would, if you had the volume up, you would hear the glass break. In that situation, the window was not broken. It was holding all that heat in, and it was all coming out this direction. All they did is took the line, hit the window. They saw where the fire was, broke the window with the line, and just did a quick 5-second exterior transitional attack. Now, that's the biggest thing that's come out of the NIST studies. If you look, last time I was here, I don't know, how long ago was that?
2 years.
Almost 2 years ago. Did we talk about transitional fire attacks back then? Blitz attacks?
Yep.
Putting water where, and when we said, hey, some people are gonna say, that's crazy, that's nuts. Now what is the New York City Fire Department and the government saying you should do? Do blitz attacks. And it's this new thing. We've been doing it for 23 years in Middleton, and Broke, I know, has been doing it for 35. Because they saw it wasn't pushing the fires. And I'm sure there, somewhere along the line, somebody put water in the vent hole and blocked it off, and yes, the fire eventually pushed through the rest of the building, but that's been disproven. That's not what happens. It goes from, that's when we talk about fire flows. It goes from high pressure to low pressure, right? And if you put a straight stream through that, you're not affecting that flow. That's a great example of it right there. You saw when they start to attack it, and the fire dies down. Does it push the fire? Or does it actually carry the moisture right through this zone? Here it comes, 4.5 second UHP transitional attack. Look at this. Watch the fire on the banister. Why did that go out?
No more heat.
That is 20-some feet away from where they were spraying the water. And it was what? 4.5 seconds. Call it 5 seconds. 30 gallons per minute. That's a 1/2 gallon per second. 1/2 gallon times 5. That's 2.5 gallons of water thrown in there. Again, only reason I talk about it, surface area. You're throwing it in, going to the base of the fire, and it puts out these peripheral fires. That's why I talk about garage fires. Sometimes you have to throw some moisture in there to prevent the fire from going in other directions. So when they say putting water in that vent hole pushes the fire, they're actually finding that it does what? It extinguishes the fire along that air track. I'm just going to play this and talk over the top of it. I'll let you listen to some music while we do it. Don't you get it? Black and yellow, our hair is black. I want to show you, though, we talk about using the technology, using what we have to reach the heat, the hot spots behind the wall. So I just want to show you, I think we have.
This. Who picked this song? This is my jam. Putting out fires or having lion babies? This is my favorite part, being one with the fire.
Just trying to get, you know, there's. Yeah, you see it going in the bottom. Look at that.
Yeah.
Just sucking in the oxygen. If you just shut the front door, what do you think would happen? Drop right down and suck up all that oxygen. And it would not just suck up the oxygen, it's going to change the high pressure and low pressure of the house. It's going to change where the fire is going to flow there. If it would eat up what's in on the inside.
So we just.
It's going to suck it through the weakest.
It would still stay in there.
Yep.
Trying to make it up.
It's not going to flow out. No different than that chapel fire that I showed you before. It shut the air track. What did the fire do? It was blowing out 10 feet outside one door, and all of a sudden it went the other direction. I think it's coming up here. This is showing you. I just caution when you go to use cellar nozzles, flowing the water in areas where the fire is above you. Obviously, you got to think about water weight, right? You've got 8.3 pounds per gallon that you're flowing. You're flowing at 3.5 gallons per second. You're over, 25, 30 pounds per second is what you got to be looking at. So when that gets on the drywall, how long is that drywall going to hold up before it falls on top of your firefighters' heads?
There it is.
Very good. But look at how much water comes down. It's really, once it goes up, it pretty much stays up. So we just aim it into the ceiling, and the water droplets are so small that it just stays suspended. Follow your fire above us. We just shoot it right through that area and put moisture vapor up there, just like that. Small water droplets, they'll carry it right to the fire. And you're not concerned about that whole ceiling dropping on top of you. Point taken? Yeah.
I thought that was foam.
Yeah, it was the plastic of the garage door. I remember having to pick it off of all the ideas. I'm just going to touch briefly on some new technologies. I don't know if you've heard of Pulse Point. Pulse Point is an app. This would be something like your dispatch center would go to. our dispatch center in Dane County just went to it. And so now it's really designed so that it sends out an alert to your citizens. Anybody, somebody's having a heart attack in this public place, and it notifies them, shows them where the AEDs are in your area, tells them what to do CCR to get it started. But you can also, if you download it, I suggest you download it. It's a free download, and just look at Dane County and track what Dane County is doing.
Yeah, it's only available in bigger cities.
Yeah, it's where they've bought into, if you will, this technology. But what it does is it's actually speeding up our response. It's automation. Going back to talking to your 911 center, what is their protocols? Because what is that? If we speed up the way they dispatch us and get us going faster, that goes to what? I'm a big preacher of speed of attack. You're going to get to the scene faster, catch the fire when it's smaller. So right now, you could have a fire going on in your district. You don't know about it. Is it going, I'll just sit here and wait until they get notified before I do anything? Right? No, it's got a mission, and it's to take everything out that's in its way. So the faster you can go there and stop it from growing, the better. This is one way Pulse Point notifies us that, and it actually goes off before our pagers go off. So it's automation. And we're going even further in Dane County with being automation of the dispatcher voice. So when we call in, we're talking to a dispatcher, and the voice that comes out and tells us what's going on is a computer. So there's no time for the dispatcher to sit there and read. All that time is saved and given to us to be able to respond. Right? Speed of attack. Some other apps here. Obviously, if you've got smartphones, I think I talked about Uvu before. We can get on the scene and show the people inside the truck the scene of the fire live. So if they look at the iPad or whatever, they can. It's no different than FaceTiming somebody, but we can see 12 apparatus. 12 apparatus can see us for free. So we show. Somebody's already downloaded Pulse Point, or is that no? Because it also has a scanner built into it. So we can show through our camera, the incident commander can show the incoming responders what's going on live, versus why even do a size up anymore? The size up is to paint the picture of what's going on. Why not show them what's going on live? That's, I think, more the future of where we're going with screens.
Driving down the road.
While they're driving down the road, they're watching the police get on scene first. Give them that technology so as you're driving there, like, oh, I see what's going on. All right. Right? Makes total sense. We don't have to get there and go, oh, where's the fire? Oh, it's right there. It's easy to find. Mapping, GPS location. This just helped save young lady's life. Was it last weekend before?
Yeah,
A lady went missing, been gone for 24 hours, frigid night, is below 0 temperatures. There's some other issues going on there that I'm not going to get into, but she was gone for, again, out in the cold, 24 hours. Police notify us, and when it comes to search and rescues, that it gets handed over to us, and our crews respond out. We put all of our apparatus out in play. We can sit there on our map and watch our firefighters go out and search the area to make sure we're doing a thorough search. And think about it in the future with our drone. Put the same cell phone or whatever that you can track where that's going to make sure you're doing a thorough search pattern. How much does it cost? 0. If you got cell phones, you've got that technology, these apps, it might be 99 cents or something, I don't know. But incredible to be able to sit back as an incident commander and say, okay, I see where they're tracking, I see where they're going. So there's all sorts of these types of apps out there. I don't know how much you deal with with people who do not speak English, but I'm the last person you want to try to speak Spanish. Did I tell you that story last time? So I kept asking the guy over and over again why, or whether or not this was his cat. versus whether or not it was his house. But anyway, hazardous materials, stuff, all I think the future, it just aids us in what we're doing. Accountability. There's accountability apps to track your firefighters in and out. It gives you warnings. It says, hey, it's been 10 minutes since somebody's given you a PAR check. Are you training on your firefighters doing PAR checks, personal alert, or personal accountability reports? So when our firefighters go in, before they even go in, you'll always hear them say, this is Attack Team 1, assigned Division 2, fire attack. We are a PAR of 3. Go ahead with your message. We don't even have to ask them for it. They're telling us every time, periodically or within 5 minutes, so that we don't have to go, geez, we haven't heard from them lately, and are they up, and wasting time in. So they're notifying us of their PAR report when they have time, not when we're asking them for it. Is there any other apps that you guys can think of that I haven't kind of already mentioned? E-Dispatch, great. Yep, I Am Responding is on there. That's all great stuff. Our department was part of a study. We went down last year to the Fire Department Instructors Conference in Indianapolis, and we had to go and listen to a presentation on this little thermal imaging camera. And you'll see them now. It's coming out actually to the commercial market for hunters and you name it. They're $300. And so we were part of that to kind of give feedback. Although it was kind of a debacle on their ad agency side of things, they're still providing it to all of our firefighters for free. All of our firefighters that went to this thing, so we're getting like a dozen of them. And what it is it's a thermal imaging camera that plugs into the bottom of your phone. So if you send an incident commander to the scene right away, they can just plug that in and shoot it and go, oh, there's the fire, right? But we got a fire in the wall. Yeah, you probably don't want to be taking your phone inside, because I know firsthand that they're not waterproof. But it does help from the exterior. But also, going back to the drone. So put a drone in the air for $1,200, whatever, and with a live thermal imaging link back to us. We have large conservancy areas. We do usually 4 or 5 search and rescues a year. Ice rescue, how's the person doing? What are they doing? While our crews are going out onto the ice, quite a distance, why not fly something directly over the top of them and see instead of them getting to the hole and go, oh crap, we need this piece of equipment, throw it out there. And then on top of it, throw a thermal imaging camera.
While your phone was getting wet, you didn't use that much water.
Yeah, you're right. It has something to do with the toilet.
Oh, it was in your front pocket.
Yeah. All right. The last time I was here, I might have talked about this, and I'm going to cruise through this, I
That
promise.
station is on my wish list.
We're gonna get my drone. I want that for investigations.
Okay.
You and Phil figure out a flyer.
Here's what I think the future of training is. This is an app that I designed, and we're bringing it to market, if you will, to help out volunteer fire departments, any fire department that does training. But right now, could all of you be someplace else, right? When I was a little kid, I was on the cover of a book that my father wrote, and it was about the use of media and long-distance education in education. And he said the future of education is long-distance learning and using other technologies. And he always said the fire service is broken. Fire service is broken the way we train. Because we say, hey, we respond 24/7, 365, but we train on Tuesday nights from this time to this time, and by gosh, you better be there, right? We did the same thing. We used to train multiple days a month. We're down to training once a month, and we're going to eventually be going to once a quarter. And then our firefighters can come in whenever they want and do their other trainings through this type of an application. So it's not that they're not doing hands-on training, they actually do more training, but they do it when they are ready to train. Right? Wouldn't that be nice to say, hey, I know I got notification that I've got a training to do, I've got to show that I can don my SCBA and PPE in 2 minutes time, but I can't be there on Tuesday nights or Wednesday nights. Hey, as long as you show us, you got 3 months or you got a month to do it, you train when you have time, and the way it works is groups of people come in and train the same time. So they log in, that's what tells them that it's them. They can go through and see other things within the application. We can go to their status of what they're doing, their training. Here I've got 3 assignments. I'm going to perform one of the assignments. I can come in here and look at our employee manual. I can look at different videos about what they are looking for us to do as an example and say, yep, I know what they're looking for here. I'm going to perform this task. Oh, they're looking for a signature, let's say. So we select signature, we sign off that we read our employee handbook and submit it. Maybe it's a camera. So we turn then all of a sudden it activates the camera, and we're asking them to tie a bowline. So the camera's on right now. You show the camera, there's the bowline, right? And you turn the app off, right? And you submit it. Once it's submitted, look, before I had 3 tasks to do, now I'm down to 2. I don't have any more time today. I'll do these 2 some other time. But when I have time to train, I train. And then as far as approving the task, your officers or whoever you assign, in our situation, we have people long distance. My father, living in Viroqua, can go through and say, oh, I just got a notification that somebody completed a task. They review it, they come in here and watch the video to make sure that they know what they're doing. Yep, they did it right. They can come in here and they did it at the operations level. You can type in, great job, don't forget to tie your safety knot, you idiot, right? And you go ahead and assign the approval, and they can get checked off. But I can do that as an officer whenever I have time. Does that make sense? So it's not that they don't do it, they actually do more of it. Our department is an ISO level 3. We rank in the top 3% of all fire departments in the country, and we're shooting for a 1. How can you get there? Anybody involved with ISO ratings? You can't do it when you don't have training and you don't have pre-plans of buildings, right? And you don't have the firefighters to respond. The first thing, why do we have 120 firefighters? We have a stack of applicants. We have people who move to our territory just to be on our department because we look at things differently. I'm just suggesting that in the future, the fire service, needs to start looking at new ways to allow firefighters to meet the requirements, right? Recruitment and retention, but you've got to train them to retain them, okay? So that, again, that's the suggestion out there, to try to get some type of application. Most kids these days have, most everybody has a smartphone. We have iPod touches that you provide to them. They can go into the station and check it out. And it doesn't cut, it actually, our tests show that it actually encourages people to say, hey, I'm going down on this night. Anybody else around want to do some training with me? And the 5 of us or 6 of us here go through that task, and we're still getting the hands-on. But right now, think of not just your department or Edgerton, whatever, just think in general of all fire departments in the country. Tell me one task that every single firefighter on your department has been checked off on within the last year. What level of compliance are you at with donning of the SCBA, which is required? Where are you at on your CPR? You know what a pain in the ass that is to go look that up? Where this can just tell you, hey, you got 3 people left to get this at 100% compliance. And it sends them automatic reminders. The feedback, there's actually better one-on-one feedback, because when you submitted your thing, when I type it in, it sends you back a message that says, hey, don't forget to tie that safety, right? And if you want to ask the instructor, an officer, or they want to provide feedback, it's there as well. And it automatically reassigns the tasks that you want to have assigned on an annual basis. So you, as an officer, don't have to keep going, what should we train on? Let's get that idiot from Middleton to come down here and talk tonight, right? You can just automatically put that into the scheduling board. I know there are departments that do a paper version of this, right? It's basically an Excel spreadsheet. You don't have to have the technology to do it. We started out in 1996 is when I first started putting this to use, because the technology wasn't there. We didn't have smartphones. But people could come in and look on a chart and say, hey, I don't have this one checked off. What is it? Show us that you know how to do this task. There's a camcorder, right? You got a camcorder, record yourself, and then somebody come in and watch the video, yep, they know how to do it, and they get checked off. It works. Why is, we still have to come together as a group. We still have to do group-wide trainings. That's all still important for camaraderie and so on. But why not have people that maybe can't make training tonight be on the department? All of a sudden you get a better round-the-clock response, because people who can respond at night or respond during the day can train at night and train during the day. So what is our training facility like now? Is there people there right now training? Every night of the week. Almost 24/7. You can just pretty much, if you looked at our station in a week's time, there's been somebody there for every hour in a given week's time. In other words, somebody came in at 1 o'clock and did some training in the morning, a.m. Somebody came in at 1 p.m. Somebody came at 3 p.m. A group of people came in and did air management training tonight, you know, that type of thing. And it creates an environment where, you know, mom at home, or mom or dad, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, isn't so pissed off all the time that you're constantly having to go down on these given nights. We used to train on weekends. We've given the weekends back. Does that make mom, dad, whoever else happy? Yeah, we've got to change it. I think we, being the fire service, have got to change and come up with newer ways to... The last thing we want to do is not train somebody. This actually raises the bar on training. It holds people accountable. Here's the last point on this subject. I go back to my son. When my son was learning to tie his shoe, you imagine how intimidating that is on a 3 or 4-year-old, whatever he was at the time. I used the app, Test Rat again, right, to teach him. What does it do? It assigns them, you got to do this at this level. Okay, you're at a cadet level. You know how to do it, but you haven't committed it to memory yet. I want to see that you know how to do this on a weekly basis. He goes in, clicks on it, shows me how he ties his shoe. Oh, that was better. You're now at a technician level. Okay, just show me that you know how to do it on a bi-weekly basis. Hey, you're really at an instructor level. You can teach your sisters now how to tie it. You're at an instructor level. Just show me every 6 months that you know how to do it, or every year, or every 2 years. But once you can teach it, you can recall how to do it. The problem with the fire service, I feel, is we teach them in the academies and we teach them in entry level, Cert 1, Cert 2, to a certain level, and then we give them to the departments and they forget what they were taught. Right? How do we sustain that? And we give them to them at a cadet level. You don't give it to them at an operations level. You need to get them to an operations level so that they sustain it. So here's the thing. Tying the shoes. Firefighters, tying knots, right? They can tie the 6 fire service knots in 60 seconds. We teach it to that level. Show me annually that you know how to tie your fire service knots in 60 seconds. You know how long it used to take us to train people? Every year, because they didn't know how to do it. We had to start all over from scratch on all 6 fire service knots. And some people, sure, you're good at knots and you're good at knots, you're not, whatever, right? Because never committed it to memory. But every year, 2 hours for each person, multiply that out. So you came in and you spent 2 hours on it. Now on a fire scene 6 months from now, can you do it? Nope, because you're going to forget it. Don't commit it to memory. We want you to just, once you learn it, please just show us that you know how to do it once a month for 6 months. That'll put it to memory. After that, you show me how to tie the fire service knots 1 time annually. How much time does it take them to do it annually now? Used to be 2 hours.
3 minutes.
60 seconds. So all of a sudden, we can train on so many other items because we're no longer wasting the time teaching our firefighters how to tie their shoes. Right? They know how to do it. You get on a fire ground, you say, hoist that axe. They know what knots to do because it's committed to memory. So it's different, right? You guys are no different than us. It's just we are going to change the way we train to commit it to memory. And you know who likes this the best? The people who have been on for 34 years. They can take their time, don't have to be in front of people. The technology is 2 buttons. Hit a button, stop the button, and it's very confidential. We don't want to call somebody out. So when we're tying our knots, how do we know that all of you tied your knots tonight? You'd have to go up and say, show me how to tie it, right? You're standing over the top of them. Show me how to tie that knot, right? Do you do that? Because we should. And in this way, you do it when you're ready to do it, commit it to memory, and we know that everybody is checked off on a given task. Versus somebody kind of floating back behind the engine when it comes time to tie their knots, right? That would be you, sir. No, I'm just kidding. Right? You get it though? So that's some of the new technology I think that's coming out there. Again, drones are huge for us. That's what we've been researching for some time. We think that's going to change the way we operate, both search and rescues and structure fire attack. Wildland firefighting. Do you guys do that here? Prairie grassland fires? How do you know that the fire hasn't jumped the ridge? Throw a drone up. Have it look down on you and have eyes up in the sky. The technology's there that's absolutely incredible. The damn thing lands itself. You just say land right here, and you launch it, and when it runs low on battery, it comes back and lands there. So, pretty crazy stuff. Questions? You, sir, had a question before, and I promise I won't take up more time. You had a point before. You're talking about if there was flames shooting out, would you put water in? Absolutely. You also made a point that I wanted to touch on. You said you went to some class about advancing the attack lines or nozzle forward or something. Key is when you're putting water in, what are you be thinking about it? You said, you go forward with the 2.5. Are you now thinking 2.5 through 1 1/8 tip? I think you said something like that. How much water can flow through 1 1/8 tip? How much surface area are you throwing in there? Why are you going with the 2.5 in the first place? Think about that stuff. That's the important part because it's not just a 2.5. It's about surface area. So in general, the 2.5 creates more surface area. But if you can't create the surface area because you can't apply it fast enough, we suggest going to smaller hand lines. Back to, why not deploy 2 1 3/4 hand lines that you can do this with, a lot of surface area, versus sitting there holding on for dear life and gallon after gallon after gallon is wasted. It's just you're creating a bigger river. There are times when you need a 2.5. There are times when you got to be thinking about surface area. That's what made me think of that. Thank you for bringing it up. Questions? Go for it.
Do those high pressure nozzles push back anymore other than a...
Good question. Somebody asked that question before. This is the nozzle. It's specific for ultra high pressure, and it looks like a garden hose, and that's what usually the first time they use it, they're like, oh, what can this do? And it knocks them on their ass. But it's less than a conventional line by far. 1-person operation. So that's the beauty of it. You saw the speed of attack. We can get a person in position And we're not suggesting that it takes less firefighters to put out the fire, but you don't need to use all three of you to hold on to one line. He takes the nozzle, you've got tools, and you're on the radio in a safety position looking out over them versus all three of you on the line doing this, right? Slowly. That person just gets into the position. We might flip the hose around and get it around the corner. Nozzle reaction force maybe in the, I don't know, 40, 50 pounds range. Nothing in comparison to an 1.75 inch flowing 200 and something. Okay, and you're definitely not going to be able to, in comparison, you saw the hand line, you saw that guy, see, here I go again. That guy sitting there doing this, putting water, surface area, applying surface area. They're painting that room like this versus, nope, I got to paint it from right here, right? Good question. Anybody else? Any other points?
So kind of going off this app, I mean, I'm going back and forth with Pete Silva about like the certification classes. Why can we not start offering the certification classes like this?
Yep.
So that instead of paying our members and disrupting them to come in and sit and watch a PowerPoint,
Yes.
you can watch that at home, and then they come in and they use their time when they do the hands-on things.
Yep. Pete has been to our department many times. He's waiting for this to go live. He thinks it's the way of the future for, especially for volunteer fire departments.
IFSTA already has a curriculum for it, and they have the system to support for just the certification stuff. Is there anyone in the state that's using it? Because he won't approve it right now.
I don't know, not that I know of. But Pete is very excited about more so the retention of the knowledge.
Correct.
We're handing them off at a cadet level. You take them to the next level, right? But a great way to, when these guys go into their Cert 1 class, we will load in the job performance requirements into the system. Just automatically assign it to all the class. And when you get done with something, you don't have to necessarily turn on the camera and videotape you flowing the nozzle. But if you're flowing the nozzle, I as an instructor just go in and go, check. Oh, you did it, good, check. When we're on the fire ground, why isn't a fire ground the training ground? When we go to a fire scene and they get there and it ends up being a fire alarm, our driver operators get out and do what?
We do what's called our 30-second drill. So we treat it like we're gonna flow water. And so put it in pump gear, generator on, down, and go through.
Go
Just
through
set
what
the
you
truck
do
up.
on the structure fire, and why not give them credit for training right then and there, right? And it's commitment to memory. If you only do that, how often can we do that as a group? We all got to come together and do this, right? Then you're only going to be doing it once a year. You don't have enough time to cover all the damn subjects that you got to cover. It makes training fun because all that peripheral stuff, you do that whenever you want to, right? And that's the same thing there. Those job performance requirements, hey, why? Go home, practice these knots, get out of here. If you got something else going on, go do it. But before next week, spend a half hour when you have a half hour and tie those knots and show us that you know how to do it.
And then what do you do when they don't? What's your discipline when they don't?
There's multiple things. The way we have, you can set up our app the way it's built, is that you can give them 3 months to do the task, and you can give them a week to do the task, whatever. We give them plenty of time to do the task, and then it says 2 weeks out, hey, the system does this. The system says, hey, you haven't completed that task, and sends them an email. And says, hey, you haven't done it. A week out, you still haven't done it, it sends you and whoever else, the chief or on top of it, that, hey, you still haven't done this task. But you give them more than enough time. What is the problem? Do we all have some time? You guys obviously do, you're here right now. But at times, are there times where you don't have time to train, but you have time at some time? It might be 3 in the morning. It might be 3 in the afternoon. You might have a day off tomorrow. That's the time we say, hey, during those times, can you come in and train? And fire calls. Use that time to train. Hey, you're rolling hose, you got to get checked off on that anyways, right? Boom.
But you still have your once a month.
Now we still have our once a month.
Yeah. Because you gotta get the people together.
Yep,
'Cause that's.
it's key.
Oh, yeah.
Yep, it's key. Whereas we are getting groups together now. People come, or without them, this even being activated in our department, we're seeing what it causes. You've got people in all the time. So right now, are you staffed? Yeah, you are. You're all sitting right here, right? You're staffed. But in an hour from now, are you going to be staffed? We're staffed 24/7, 365. Now, and while they're there, they're training.
But you gotta tell them they can support it.
What's that? Yeah. Oh, I'm not. I'm.
Yeah.
It's not. I'm not again saying you should do this, or that you can have that system. The point is when you have, you're overstaffed right now. When these 4 come in tomorrow afternoon, and a call comes in, they're ready to go. And these 4 come in tomorrow night, because that's when they can train, they're ready to go. All of a sudden, your station has more activity. You follow? In our situation, it's staffing. We're staffed 24/7. But it's on a volunteer basis, and we're not eating up their time. They come in when they want to come in. Again, only point is not saying this is the answer. Something is the answer. Something different than the way we're currently doing it. Cool? Any other questions? Thank you very much for your time and having us come down here. And that's it. Have a good night.